Hello and welcome to this first video in the series Chess Opening Trap. For this video I have selected perhaps the most famous trap, the so-called Delegal mate, that happened for the first time in a game between Delegal and Saint-Bris in Paris about 7050 in the Café de la Régence. The game started with e4, e5, open game. Then white developed the knight f3, attacking the black pawn e5. Black defend the pawn with d6, the so-called Philidor'd defense. Philidor'd was another strong French player, more or less in the same period of Delegal. According to Philidor'd, the knight f3 is misplayed, and if white continue attacking the black center with d4, the black can react with f5, the so-called Philidor'd counter gambit. But why Philidor'd preferred d6 against the most common knight c6? Because according to Philidor'd, this knight is misplaced because prevent and obstruct the natural push of pawn in c6. So for this, Philidor'd preferred to play d6. What happened in the game? White continued with bishop c4, pointing the bishop against the weakest point in the black position, that is the pawn f7, that is protected just by the king. White so is create a pressure on this point. Black continued develop bishop g4, pinning the knight against the queen in d1. White continued to develop another piece, knight c3. Now a mistake from black is a lose of tempo. We are at move 5 and white is ready for his trap. Knight takes e5. Now here the best continuation for black is pawn takes knight and followed by the white capturing the bishop. However, what happened in the game? That black was attracted to capture the queen. So apparently the move knight e5 appears as a big blunder for white, but white instead calculated very well. And there is mate in 2 with bishop f7, check. The only possible square for the king is king e7, followed by a shocking move, knight d5, checkmate. So a nice combination in which the checkmate is delivered by a bishop in collaboration with 2 knights. It's particularly famous, this game, because it involved the sacrifice of the queen. Let's see another game in which the same combination happened. This game was played in Vienna, 1847, between Folkbeer and an unknown player. The game went like this: e4, e5, so again an open game, knight f3, followed by the more usual move, knight c6. Now white in this game played d4, the so-called Scotch game, tried to attack directly the black center. Black accepted the Scotch game. Now white, instead of capture back with the knight, usual in the Scotch game, develop bishop in c4, the so-called Scotch gambit, with idea again of pointing against the weak point f7. Black continue with d6. White sacrifice another pawn with c3 and black is happy to take this pawn, and white take back, developing another piece with knight takes c3. Now again black develop, pinning the knight against the queen with bishop g4. White continue with castle kingside. Now black play this move, knight e5. with the idea of attacking the bishop, protecting this weak point f7, and create pressure on the knight in f3. So apparently this seems a good move, but in reality is a mistake, because white has no problem to capture the knight. And now the best reply for black is again to capture the knight with the pawn. Let white capture the bishop. And of course, the white position is superior, but much better of what happened in the game. After knight e5, the black took the queen, falling in the trap, in the legal trap, because bishop 7 check, the only square available for the king, and now, as usual, knight d5, checkmate. Another example is the game between Philidor'd and Fernandez. The game started e4, e5, but now white adopt a different approach. Instead of developing knight f3, develop the other knight, knight c3, the so-called Vienna game. Black decide to answer in a symmetric way, so the so-called max lunge defense. White continue with a gambit, playing f4, the so-called Vienna gambit. Black didn't accept the gambit and play d6 to sustain the pawn in e5. White continued developing with knight f3, and now a6, a lose of tempo, a mistake for black. White instead continued to develop with bishop c4, with the usual idea of targeting the weak point f7. Black developed g4, pinning the knight. White play f takes e5. Black decide to capture the pawn instead with the d pawn, that is a good move, with the knight. Again with the idea that we have seen before. White has no problem to take the knight, and after bishop take queen, as usual the combination bishop f7 check, king e7, knight d5. So a different opening, the same combination was used. Another interesting game involved a different opening. Let's start as usual with e4, e5. Now d4, center game, pawn takes d4, center game accepted, and now a very aggressive move, Danish gambit with c3. Black continue to harvest white pawn with d takes c3. White develop bishop c4, and black continue with d6, opening the diagonal for the black bishop. White capture back with knight takes c3 and develop another piece. Also black develop another piece, knight f6. White continue with knight f3, and then we have the usual pin, bishop g4. White is not worried about this pin and castle kingside. Black continue the development with knight c6. Now the position at this stage is slightly superior for white. White decide to play bishop g5, pinning the knight against the queen. What follow now is knight e5, something that we have seen also in other game. And also, as in this other game, white has no problem to capture the knight. Here again, what is recommended to take back the knight with the pawn. Instead, what happened in the game, black is following the trap, taking the queen. And now mate in2, as usual, follow with bishop f7 check, king e7, and knight d5 checkmate. Now please pay attention that this knight cannot capture the knight because the bishop is pinning the knight against the king. The last game that I'm proposing was played by Sharon against an unknown player in 1929. The game is again an open game with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. Now white continue with bishop c4, the so-called Italian game. At that time was preferred to the more modern approach that is the Ruy Lopez. More modern in the sense that is more used in the modern practice, but of course is also an old opening, more or less as the Italian game. So instead of playing the bishop in b5, Ruy Lopez or Spanish game, white decide to play bishop in c4, the so-called Italian game. Now in this position, black can play bishop c5, the gioco piano, or knight f6, the two-knight defense. Instead, black went for a more passive move, d6. White continued the development with knight c3, and now again the usual pin g4 against the knight in f3. Now white pose a question for black with the h3 move, trying to kick out this bishop. Black want to maintain the pin and retract the bishop in h5. White is ready to take with the knight. Again, best continuation is this, taking back with the pawn. Let white capture the bishop. And now black can continue with something like g6, and white can play queen f3. But what happened in the game, as you can imagine, black play bishop capture queen, and now the usual mate in 2 that should be quite familiar at this stage, bishop f7, king e7, knight d5, checkmate. We have seen how this combination, the legal mate, can happen in many games using different openings. So what is important for us is to recognize and remember this pattern, and possibly we can use this in our games. I hope that you find this video interesting, and see you next time. Thank you for your attention. Bye bye.